So AMD just now released a CPU no one expected. Then we got other product announcements confirming that Ryzen 10K will have more cores, and both Ryzen 10K and 11K are set to be back-to-back monsters. Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. Okay, it's news time, and first up for today, AMD just launched a new CPU that really no one saw coming. As you can see, it's the Ryzen 5 5500X3D. So yeah, we're talking about yet another X3D chip, and yes, on AM4. You can see that the Ryzen 5 5500X3D is a 6-core processor based on the Zen 3 architecture, and it's equipped with the same 64 megabytes of first generation 3D V cache, which means a total of 96 megabytes, and they claim that the 5500X3D is essentially a slower version of the 5600X3D. It obviously still has 6 cores and 12 threads. The TDP remains the same, but it has between 300 to 400 megahertz lower clocks to the 5600X3D. And of course, that is a pretty large drop in clocks here. Now, there is unfortunately some bad news. It says what we do learn from the official product page of the 5500X3D is that it's going to be released exclusively in Latin America. So for anyone who isn't there, you likely won't get a chance to buy one, though of course they have done this in the past where they've released something to a certain area and then broadened that region by quite a bit until it was basically worldwide. But here's the thing, even if you aren't interested in this, or if you're not in Latin America, for anyone who's still on the AM4 platform, if you have a 5800X3D, really, anything on the AM4 platform, this really is good news. Because every time that they release a new processor for that platform, they now have to extend the amount of time that they're going to support it. They obviously can't release something and then the next day say, okay, we're not supporting this platform anymore, it's done, it's end of life. They just can't do that. So each time they release a new CPU, it helps everyone who's still on the AM4 platform. And while yes, it isn't all that impressive, still keep in mind that it is an X3D chip. Given all that cache, it still could be a fairly decent gaming processor, especially given the price is right. Obviously the price is going to be the main thing. Regardless, one of the main reasons why I wanted to cover this was just to say that AMD is still supporting their AM4 platform. Ever feel like your desk setup was designed by a caffeinated octopus during a blackout? Yeah, me too. But then today's sponsor came in to clean my cable chaos, Ugreen, and it's with their new RevoDock Thunderbolt 5 13-in-1 dock. That's right, 13 ports in a single dock, including 4 ultra-fast Thunderbolt 5 ports with 120 gigabit per second speed. You could transfer 10 gigabyte files so fast your head would spin. And if you're a productivity lover like me, you can even run dual 6K displays at 60 Hz refresh rate. Need to charge something? No problem, because the dock also offers 140 watt dynamic charging so you can charge multiple things at once. Plus it has a 2.5G Ethernet port for 2500 megabit per second network speed and an SD and micro SD card slot reader with 312 megabyte transfer speed. Really, it's got it all. So what are you waiting for? Declutter your area with the RevoDock Thunderbolt 5 13-in-1 dock. And when you use my link in the description, you'll save a whopping 25%. So don't wait any longer and check it out in the description below. Next up for today, AMD just announced their next 2 generations of EPYC processors. And while I typically don't go too deep into server products, this announcement completely confirms a couple really big things about their next-gen Ryzen CPUs as well. So let's quickly go over some of the specs, and then I'll get to what all of it means. Starting things off, AMD announced their next-generation EPYC Venice CPUs, followed by their next-generation EPYC Verino. And as you can see, their next generation Venice gets up to an unbelievable 256 cores. Now, obviously that amount is for their little Zen 6 C cores, but it's still a massive increase. Remember that while it's not shown here, Zen 4C came with up to 128 cores, then they moved with Zen 5C up to 192 cores, and now they're at a whopping 256 cores and 512 threads. And as you can see, they are promising some wild performance upgrades. For one, we're looking at gen on gen at 1.7x. Now, that may not seem like that big of a deal given how many cores it has, but keep in mind that it's only 33% more cores, yet they're claiming 70% more performance. Not only that, but CPU to GPU bandwidth has been 2x'd, and memory bandwidth is at 1.6 terabytes per second. But that really isn't even the big news here. As you can see, so this article from WCCF Tech actually gains more information. They show off some slides that actually show the processor as like what we're seeing on it, but they actually didn't even need to do this because it does seem like AMD themselves have confirmed this. So what's wild isn't the fact that it got 256 cores, it's that it did it with less CCDs. So you can see that to get 192 cores with Zen 5C, it needed 12 CCDs, while with Zen 6C, it only needs 8, which means that these CCDs come with a whopping 32 Zen 6C cores per CCD. But it actually gets even better because we also know about their regular full classic Zen 6 core. Now, you can actually see that it says Zen 5, but that's clearly a mistake here. They do say Venice. This is clearly Zen 6, and I have seen this elsewhere as well. But you can see, okay, 96 cores. So the core count for the full Zen 6 core Venice didn't go up. But as you can see here, they were once again able to do it with just 8 CCDs rather than 16. And here, what's wild is that this proves that each CCD comes with 12 cores per CCD. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, yeah, but so what? This is their EPYC lineup. But if their EPYC lineup tells us based on the past anything, it's that the amount of cores per CCD, whether it's EPYC or Threadripper or really anything, remains the same. The only thing they do is just add more CCDs, and that makes perfect sense because they just make the CCDs and then scale it, whether they want an EPYC processor or what, they just add more CCDs to it. That's exactly how Zen was originally made, meaning this pretty much completely confirms that AMD's next-gen Ryzen, whether it's Ryzen 10K, 10,000, Ryzen AI 700 2D, whatever they end up calling it, it is set to come with CCDs that have 12 cores per CCD. And if they do what they've always done, which is have 2 CCDs, we're looking at next-gen Ryzen to come with up to 24 cores. And it actually doesn't stop there because, like I said, there's actually a couple things this tells us. If we go back here, you'll notice that these are 2 separate, this is Zen 6 and this should be Zen 7, so 2 completely separate architectures, yet they're only 1 year apart, which tells us if this is right, if it is Zen 7 and this is Zen 6, that AMD is now moving to an annual cadence just like NVIDIA. And if they're going to release a new generation architecture for EPYC every single year, this would also likely mean that they'll release new architecture every year for the consumer side as well, meaning potentially new Ryzen generation every single year. And lastly for today, while talking a new generation of Ryzen processors, in a new video from Morzal Dead, he actually confirmed that next-gen Ryzen would in fact have 24 cores. And like I showed, AMD essentially confirmed that themselves. But the more interesting stuff has to do with AMD's following generation. And the reason we're likely seeing this info already is because AMD is on a 1-year cadence, potentially. We know they are when it comes to EPYC, not 100% sure about their consumer CPUs, but either way, if you remember, I've discussed Zen 7 before, and at that time, leaks had claimed that AMD was getting a 3D core. Remember that AMD has already claimed to be working on this in the past. We're talking DRAM on top of the CPU, cores on cores. But the issue is that we weren't sure if it would come to the consumer side. Well, it looks like it may not, But it doesn't even matter, because Zen 7 or Ryzen 11K or whatever it'll end up being called is set to be a monster of a generational upgrade. As you can see here, his source says, after seeing your Zen 7 leak, I thought I should also let you know that there will likely be a standard version of Zen 7 for consumers that still has L3 cache on the core chiplets. 3D variant has no L3 on the core chiplets. It says, so the current plan for consumer Zen 7 is dual 16 core chiplets. So yeah, they likely won't have the core on core variant for Zen 7, but they're going to be having 2 chiplets with 16 cores on each, meaning yet another jump in core count for Zen 7 all the way up to 32 cores. Not only that, but it does say it will still utilize Vcache to increase the total L3. It says, don't worry though, the IPC of the classic variant and 3D variant is supposed to be comparable, and the classic variant will likely have higher voltages and clock speeds than the 3D core variant, meaning it will ultimately end up being even better than the 3D core variant. That is likely for Epic or something like that, where they can have even more cores. I mean, they'll have 16 cores per chiplet, but then they can put a bunch of chiplets on top of each other, or at least the cores on top of each other. This really is getting wild. So he kind of ends it to say, so I am not sure you'll get those fancy 3D chiplets on desktop with Zen 7, but I do think it's likely Zen 7 will go up to 32 cores on AM6. Now that is sort of disappointing, but of course, don't forget this isn't next gen, but the generation after that. So it does make perfect sense. AM5, still has plenty of life left in it, but at least by this time we're potentially looking at AM6, but it does have tons of Vcache included. Basically, AMD is not stopping. They're not stopping anytime soon. Next generation is likely set to be a massive jump in performance, and then the generation after that looks to be an even bigger jump. Not necessarily bigger, but yet another giant jump yet again.